Last winter, a carport collapsed and damaged several vehicles parked below. Then, the call came to KSL investigator Matt Gephardt that the owner of the vehicles said that their apartment complex told them that they were on their own to pay for the damage. You have been investigating. That just doesn't sound right.
We have. Well, we've all heard the phrase act of God, right? It's more or less a legal term that means it's not our fault. Mother Nature is to blame. Well, in this case, heavy snow brought the structure down, but with evidence that the support columns were full of rust, should the apartment complex be off the hook? You ask. KSL Investigates.
Sam and Avery Schrader's motorcycle was crushed last winter, along with several other cars, after this carport collapsed. Images they captured show the carport had some maintenance issues.
You can see each one is just totally rusted out.
At first, Avery says that apartment managers were poised to take responsibility.
The damages were going to be paid for. They said that they'd take care of us.
But as winter turned to spring, the message changed.
They told us that they weren't going to pay for any of the damages and that it was an act of God.
Yeah, even though it hadn't snowed in more than a week, there was still snow on the roof, which apartment managers were blaming for the collapse. Avery and Sam don't buy it.
This was due to negligence.
But when their protests got them nowhere, Avery and Sam decided it was time to call me. You ask, KSL Investigates. I reached out to the nonprofit Utah Legal Services, which told me that by law in Utah, a landlord might be responsible for damage caused by a carport collapse, but then again, they might not. When there is negligence, like letting the posts go into disrepair, then the apartment complex could be held liable. But when there's a so-called act of God, like too much snow on the roof leading to the collapse, then the landlord may not be liable. It all pretty much is handled on a case-by-case basis in court. The KSL investigators reached out to property managers here at the Royal Ridge apartment complex in Midvale, and we pointed out there sure did seem to be an awful lot of rust on those carport poles. Apartment managers told us they were working directly with their residents to resolve the matter, and that if we had any further questions, we needed to speak to their lawyer, State Senator Kirk Cullimore. Well, yeah, we had more questions, namely, what was the resolution? Cullimore says we don't get to know, and in fact, Avery and Sam were gagged from talking to me any more about it going forward. Quote, the Schraders have entered into a confidential settlement agreement with Royal Ridge, the lawyer wrote, adding, quote, at this point, the matter with the Schraders is resolved.
So it seems it may have worked out for the Schraders after our calls. No word on any of their neighbors. The story also a good reminder that more expensive car insurance can sometimes pay off. If all you have is liability insurance and something like a carport or a tree branch damages your car, you could be on the hook for it all by yourself. If you got a problem you can't solve, give the KSL investigators a shot at the number 385-707-6153, or you can email me, Matt at ksl.com.